Total War has arrived in 2021 as a very weird phenomenon. One of the weirdest things about it is that it's apparently actually considered acceptable, or even selfless, to pre-order their games, and the people with audiences and with influence actually largely encourage and advocate for the player base to do this. They play into this extremely toxic relationship between the customer and the publisher, in enabling a situation where it's considered a good thing, a helpful thing, to engage in pre-ordering. The way they frame it, it almost seems like teamwork, a grassroots movement. I didn't appreciate the scale of this problem until recently because I don't ever watch other gaming channels on YouTube. I tried to gauge how normal this pre-order situation was by looking into Paradox YouTubers for the sake of comparison, and I struggled to find a single pre-order link anywhere, but with the Total War YouTube scene, it's absolutely rampant. Sometimes there's 2 different pre-order links in the same damn video description. Pre-ordering has always been cringe and has always been a problem. Publishers and developer marketing teams got together and noticed that it's possible to get people to hand over money for games before they're even finished, before they even exist. I don't know if this is an atavism from a time when games were distributed physically and stock was still a factor and people reserved copies with their money. But here we are in 2021, with the whole system now conspiring together to have people part with their money early and get absolutely nothing in return. All it takes is a big franchise name and a trailer and people out there will pay up. Sometimes it takes even less than that. Sometimes all it takes is an appealing idea with just a possibility of follow-through. Sometimes all it takes is a pre-order button on Steam and an excited YouTuber pointing out that it exists. It really doesn't take much to get people to part with their money, and that's where we come to the big problem this video is all about. You'll often hear that YouTubers got early access to games and that they had interaction with the developers, or even that they got to fly out and hang out with the developers for a few days. I've had my own experiences with this, but never with CA, thank fuck. You get to meet the developers and talk about their games with them and play their games before everyone else does. This kind of thing only happens because it's profitable in one way or another. YouTubers are usually only allowed that involvement because of the size of their audience. That's what they bring to the table, their audience. And then they go home and say nice things about the game and its developers to that captive audience. That's how this arrangement works. This is the transaction. If you're someone with an audience and this happens to you, then you have to keep something in mind. Your main responsibility is always to your audience. You have a responsibility to not mislead your audience. Having an audience is an opportunity in itself, but you've now been given another one to inform your audience better than ever before. And remember, the audience you have is the sole and entire reason you were given this opportunity in the first place. To use this responsibility properly, you have to be honest about what you thought about the game. Actually honest, good and bad. You have to be aware and to make clear to your audience the fact that you weren't given this opportunity as a token of kindness, but because of the size of your audience. YouTubers are usually just regular people. They're gamers like the rest of us. They care about the same games as their viewers and are seen as being disconnected from the corporations and the marketing and the gaming press. They're independent. They're one of us. This makes them more trustworthy and so especially valuable for convincing potential customers to open their wallets and part with their money. Publishers and marketing teams really want to get them on side because they are aware of this. If you're a YouTuber that's been given the opportunity to expose a game to your audience in advance of release, and you're using this opportunity to engage in unwarranted hype, then you've relegated yourself to being an extension of the marketing department of the company behind the game, and you're not even being paid to do that. You're betraying the trust of your audience and deceiving your audience.
Fucking Total War game, of course I'm going to play it, and of course I'm hyped for it, even though Warhammer has never really been my thing. I genuinely enjoyed this event. I would have loved to have done it on an actual event, like being at a place, just so that connection, etc., wouldn't have been an issue. But other than that, I really enjoyed this. This was obviously probably on normal difficulty or something, and I genuinely had a really fun time, which is why I played it multiple times, because I went into it planning on playing it once, maybe twice, but I ended up playing it like 4 times. I could have played it even more, actually, but I had stuff to do on the same day. Anyway, so what I'm thinking currently is, because I enjoyed this as much as I did, I probably... Well, I mean, I was always going to do Let's Plays on Warhammer. I just wasn't really planning on doing many of them. Oh, I love the spell, by the way, this like cone. I love the cone spells on Warhammer always.
This can be difficult to avoid because the developers themselves are often passionate and enthusiastic and really nice people, and you've got to hang out with them. But if you market their game on something other than its merits, something other than the truth, then you are doing them no favours. If you're a regular person and a YouTuber or a streamer talks up a game to you before it's even available to play and does it using pre-order links, they're not doing you any favours either. You might have felt like they were your friend, but doing this shows that they're not. They don't have your best interests in mind when they do this. Anyone that asks you to engage in pre-ordering doesn't care about you one fucking bit. They're siphoning money from you while behaving in ways that accelerate the worsening of the very games we're all here for and that brought us all together in the first place. That is the behaviour of your enemy, not your friend.
I actually get 100% of the profit from a game. So Nexus will be giving me their part of the profit. So I basically get double this, essentially, if you buy it from the 14th of May until the 20-something of May.
I've never engaged in a single product placement, despite getting emails offering me money to do them almost every single day, and you won't find a single pre-order link to a game on my channel, ever. Not once in 10 years of doing YouTube have I done that, and you'll never see that from me. Not a chance in fucking hell. Encouraging pre-orders is extremely irresponsible, and there's absolutely no way.
Do not pre-order games. Do not buy season packs. Don't do that. Don't do those things.
Yeah, don't pre-order. Pre-ordering is horrible. DLC, like I hated DLC from the first. I think the first DLC was the maps for Call of Duty 4. That was the first time I came across DLC.
I think that was the same for me.
And it just reeks of complete bullshit for me right away.
Yeah, I have to buy these maps, but I've already got the game. What?
Yeah, buying maps. I mean, it's not even like it's a substantial addition to the game. It's just a different sandbox to run around in. Why would you pay for that? That's the kind of post-release support you want. Patches and full expansions in their own right. You don't want little tacky pieces of DLC that add like 1% to the content of the game but cost like £5 or $10. Fuck that, it's cancer.
What's that? You want armour for your horse in Oblivion? Pay
oh my god!
For this horse pack? That's like the most notorious one.
Yeah, no wonder. Pounds, entire units of currency for this? What the hell? That's a substantial fraction of the original cost, and I need to pay that for fucking armour from a horse? Fuck off. That's bullshit. DLC is just cancer. Just avoid DLC at all costs, avoid pre-orders at all costs. It's horrible. It's fucking the game industry when you do that stuff. It's condoning that kind of bullshit. There should be a backlash for that stuff, but instead people just casually accept it and tacitly approve of it by paying for it, and it annoys me.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's masochism.
This doesn't prove that I'm your friend, but it proves that I'm able to be motivated by something other than money. If I've spent years focusing entirely on gameplay and have been consistently calling out bad games and bad behaviour the entire time I've been online, then that has implications for my motivations and my credibility. Likewise with anyone else that matches that description. It's worth paying very close attention to these things. If you agree to be an extension of the marketing department for the games you cover,
I genuinely really enjoyed this. I know apparently now it's this thing after Volant made that video that apparently I only do this because otherwise CA will kick me out of the partner program. It's complete bullshit, fabrication, lies, whatever. I genuinely enjoyed this event. Genuinely had a really fun time.
And you don't disclose it or even outright deny it, then not only are you betraying the trust of your audience, and not only are you forfeiting your integrity as a person,
genuinely,
but you're also undercutting all of the other people attempting to do this whole thing properly. All of the people that are putting actual thought and effort into being honest and effective in their role as journalists and communicators and gameplay connoisseurs, and that are going about doing it in a grounded, sensible, non-clickbaity, non-hyperbolic way. and you comply with this dynamic due to unvirtuous or outright selfish reasons. If you do this purely for financial benefit, then you are not thinking long term. You're shooting yourself in the foot by making the games you depend on worse. If you talk up these games out of fear because you're scared you won't be allowed access again next time, then you're indicating that you are willing to forfeit your independence and become a PR instrument, part of the volunteer force of the market machinery. You're communicating that you find that to be acceptable to you. And believe me, publishers can smell the cowards and are happy to give them exactly what they're willing to receive. If I can sniff those fuckers out, you bet your ass that they can too. If you give in to this fear, you're acknowledging that you think you're journalistically worthless, that your only value is in fact handed down to you by publishers, when if you were on the ball, you would be cognizant of the fact that it actually comes from the bottom up. That's how you got where you are right now. You're indicating that you don't think you even deserve your audience in the first place. You're throwing in the towel and giving your audience away for free. You're subsumed. Just a fucking middleman reading off a press release. If that isn't a sellout, then tell me what the fuck is. When you're given early access to a game, your first responsibility is always to your audience. Your job is to scrutinise the game and accurately relay to your audience exactly what we have on our hands here.
I'm sure a lot of people will dislike me for this. Some of you might just stop watching my videos outright. But I honestly don't care. I think I have a right to voice my opinion on a Total War game, a series that I hold very dear to my heart. And I just see it going downhill. So yeah, I wouldn't expect any Attila single player from me anywhere in the future.
That's the only way you can enact useful, productive action in this situation. In the case of Rome Remastered, the people given early access spectacularly failed to do this. It took until barely a week before launch before we first saw the atrocious user interface get appropriate scrutiny towards it.
And here was the big shock. I was like, I'm gonna make a building, and then this thing pops up on the right, and I was like, wow, it's tiny! That's the biggest takeaway. Tiny icons and some small tooltips as well. Not sure why, because the rest of the screen is not used. You don't need to be able to see it while doing the construction stuff. A bit of a UI blunder, and I think this remaster is actually packed with UI blunders. They've completely changed everything, but it doesn't make it any better, and in some cases I would argue it's significantly worse. And adding more clicks to see information in a slightly smaller, harder to read way, well, that's multiple UI design violations. I say all this because I did sort of study the vague best practices of UI design a while back, because I did do some UI design professionally for actual money for a brief period. So things like minimizing clicks to achieve a task and maximizing accessibility, stuff like that, is slightly in the back of my mind, and I feel like this game was made without those modern considerations for design. There's the UI blunder, stuff appearing and disappearing, some code lines the wrong way round, resetting the alpha of UI elements, probably because I've had that issue myself when I developed a game. And that loading screen tip is confusing and not very good. For some reason this game's really affected me in a negative way. I think I am genuinely disappointed and I'm struggling to process that. You can't stop me. I'm going to say something else bad about the UI now. I'm actually going to complain about the UI again.
I didn't appreciate that the user interface might turn out to be an unprecedented mess until I found this video. I then got the game on launch and immediately had all of the same complaints and thought back to this video. He was right about everything he said. I hate the UI. Everyone hated it. People were refunding the game because it was unbearable for them. Everyone hated it, except it seems for the people that got the game during early access. We even had some terrible UI apologetics going on from one of them. Full-blown gaslighting going on to muddy the waters even further. So this is who's getting early access and being given the responsibility to convey the nature of the game to prospective customers ahead of release. When I bought the game on launch and streamed my initial hands-on experience with it, it took me barely an hour to really notice and start complaining about how the sound balancing was horribly off for the entire game. The music was completely overbearing, even when turned way down, and in-game sound effects were often barely audible. And then the noise of the shields coming up. Let's go. Let's go. Why did they make it so quiet?
Waiting for order.
Why have they made the shields so quiet?
Quickly.
Why is this so quiet as well? Usually the whole unit confirms the order, like they all shout in unison to acknowledge it, and then they start moving together. Let's have a look at Scorpions, see if they'll fire anything. Scorpions were cool. Holy shit, what are they firing at? Are they trying to hit guys on the wall? It's really quiet though, it's really quiet. Oh my god, that again? I've commented on quietness already, but it's so quiet. I've got the music turned down. Effects are at 100%, music is down at 20%, let's go 20%, alright there we go. 20%, and... Alright, let's listen for the Scorpion shots, right in the middle. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Fucking hell, you can barely hear it. It's just like the guns in Warhammer. I wasn't the only one that immediately noticed this.
Yeah, they run by default. Okay. There's no sound though when they run, or it's like really quiet. Need to improve that. You're supposed to, you know, that's a part of the experience. Let's go. How is that normal? That there's no sound. It's so weird. I just wanted a nice column formation. I just wanted to feel. Wanted to remember. I used to do that when I was a kid. Except now there's like barely any noise for them walking. For some reason. This is like an example of like trying to recapture the feeling and just not being able to recapture the feeling at all. Yeah. It's like there's just something wrong. If 12-year-old Darren saw this and was like, this is what Rome Total War is going to look like in 20 years, probably would have cried. And then if you told him like Rome 2 is going to come out, it's going to be really bad. And then people are going to be excited for this just because it's not Rome 2.
But I don't remember a peep about this during early access. You'd think something as fundamental as the sound being completely botched would be remarkable and kick off a shitstorm among the early accessors, but apparently not. The rest of us had to hand over the money for the opportunity to discover this delightful issue all by ourselves. Amazing. I pulled up one of the people that were given early access and inquired to him about this issue, and he said he has actual hearing problems which prevented him from noticing this issue, and that may well be true, but I think most people with working ears and a decent set of headphones, in other words, fucking everyone else with early access, had no excuse to not pick up on this and harp on about it, even more so than with the terrible UI. I was immediately taken completely by surprise by this problem, and I think everyone else was too. This should not be happening. It's ironic that the term remaster comes from the music industry, and this remaster was a complete abortion in the sound department. YouTubers are not your friends, and they're even less likely to be your friend if the franchise they depend on is diseased, and they're scared to even acknowledge it. So scared that they can't even scrutinise properly during early access.
Genuinely.
In that situation, they're a vulture making circles in the sky. There's usually only one thing they're thinking about. To put it to you straight, if someone wants you to pre-order something, they think you're a fucking sucker. And sure enough, I made a poll, a quite impartial poll with a large sample size, and the most frequent outcome when people allow themselves to be influenced, there's that word, into buying games, is that the game falls short of expectations and falls short of what was described. So there it is. Influencers are garbage. Influence is a bad thing. The incidence of people feeling like the games were overhyped is over 3 times that of people feeling like the games were undersold. There are games that you can buy right now and play right now that already have Metacritic user reviews that you can look at right now. You don't need to listen to YouTubers covering new games and waste time trying to decipher the truth by sifting through marketing veneer for which they're often now a close accessory. Just look at the Rome Remaster. We had a solid month of YouTubers giving us porn actress money shot faces in their thumbnails and with video titles making bullshit claims about modability.
With the release of Rome Remastered, Total War is heading towards a kind of golden age of modding, and it really makes me excited to the possibility of not just Rome Remastered's future, but the future of Total War modding in general.
The game hadn't even come out yet and people were already talking about fucking mods as an excuse to make hype videos. Hype videos to get views, views to get ad revenue and attention, attention to try to get people to pre-order with an affiliate link. So people out there were pre-ordering a game on the basis of modding potential, and it was a game that obviously had no modding potential whatsoever, because we already had 15 years of modding effort exhaust this potential of any game with this exact same AI and this exact same pathfinding, and neither have been improved in this remaster. We even had people talking about further remasters. So we're still in the pre-release marketing phase of this game, and the marketing of the next game has already begun. The YouTubers and their videos are beating the actual full-time paid marketing team to the punch. This is some next level shilling. No discount or pre-order bonus is ever worth pre-ordering.
And say, don't forget to pick up your free gift, a classic, deluxe, custom, designer, luxury, prestige, high-quality, premium, select, gourmet pocket pencil sharpener.
The risk is always too great. Fuck 10%. Even if the pre-order discount was 50%, that still would barely be worth it, because nearly half of all pre-orders as a result of YouTuber hype result in disappointment and regret.
And if you act now, we'll include an extra added free complimentary bonus gift, a classic, deluxe, custom, designer, luxury, prestige, high-quality, premium, select, gourmet, combination keyring, magnifying glass, and garden hose.
Being disappointed is the most frequent outcome of pre-ordering based on shillfluencer hype. No pre-order bonus is ever worth pre-ordering. If it was, it would not be there for you to take.
In a genuine imitation leather-style carrying case with authentic vinyl trim. Yours for the asking, no purchase necessary. It's our way of saying thank you. Actually, it's our way of saying bend over just a little bit farther so we can stick this big advertising
25% of total sales today are pre-orders. When you get into the AAA space and economies of scale and swollen marketing budgets take over, the percentage gets even higher. A big chunk of that 25% happens as soon as pre-ordering becomes available. I think it's about 10%. There's now a fanboy demographic that instantly pre-orders no matter what. I'll explain what this does to these games. Alright, a diagram to help with this. So this is going to plot sales over time. So right in the middle is launch, and then on the left side there is pre-order, opening up, game being announced. So it starts off with like 10% of the sales happening right at the start, and then it just has slow jumps up with every marketing campaign, and then launch happens, and then it just tails off and flattens out. So that's about a quarter of all sales on the left before the middle, on the left side before launch. So that's 4 months on the left there, 4 months out, and something like a quarter of all sales happen before launch, and 10% happens right at the start. And over that 4 months, that dotted line is the average over the course of that period. So for a third of a year, this is the amount of sales they have on average. And that's going to be about, well, let's go with Rome 2. Rome 2 managed something like 500,000 pre-orders, and if that's $60, after Steam takes their cut, 30%, and then take away some more, so just assume $30 profit. And then if the average is in the middle, so about 250,000 pre-orders over the 4 months, then that works out at being about 7.5 million in profit. So that's an interest-free loan of $7.5 million for 4 months. And what do they do with that? Did they just have that money sit and do nothing? Is that what this is all for? Of course not. They're going to use that money to make more money. So they're going to buy the market and get the 10%, or they're going to buy shares in their competition, or they buy back their own shares, share buybacks. They can do whatever they want. It's their money now. Whatever they do, it's an interest-free loan, and if they wanted to have that money, they would have had to have borrowed it from a bank or from investors and be paying 10 or 15 or 20% on it, but instead they get it for free, and they can use it to make more money, and that's enough to sustain 10 salaries. That's $7.5 million, yielding 10% a year for a third of a year, and that works out at about 2 or 3% for free, so that's like 250k, which is enough for 10 salaries. So this operation sustains the salaries of 10 marketers, so they would be a fool not to do it, and this is all because people are stupid enough to just pre-order games that aren't done yet, and this is what you're buying marketing campaigns, and this can just go on and on forever. This just pays forward endlessly, because that's what happens. You've got massive corporations that have all of these subsidiaries, and they're all doing the exact same thing, so it's just paying forward endlessly, and it becomes an essential part of the whole game making process, and it has absolutely nothing to do with making the games better. It's all just empty bullshit marketing, and this is what you pay for. And now we have the marketing for Warhammer 3 kicking into gear, and the Shilling fleet is at full mast. I made a Reddit post asking people to give me examples of Total War YouTubers that encourage pre-orders, and I got actual lists in response. As I said, it's almost impossible for me to find Paradox YouTubers that have even a whiff of pre-order links anywhere near them. I usually refrain from singling people out unless they've already picked a fight with me, and all of the YouTubers I've cited so far in this video were stupid enough to have done exactly that, and I'm happy to use them to make my points. But in this case, this guy hasn't ever done anything wrong by me. In this case, there's just a lot to be remarked upon. So Cody Bonds has made a video where I think he actually did quite a good job of upholding what I described earlier about honestly conveying the nature of the game as he saw it. He gave a list of observations that seemed quite sensible, and I get the impression this video of his actually set the tone for the discourse around this game. It was probably quite important and overall a force for good. The video itself was quite sensible, but it's the description that had me double taken. Because if you look at it, it says, the hype train needs to tap the brakes before it derails. But then further down, there's a pre-order link. And this isn't just a pre-order link from a video description template. This pre-order link is actually annotated with, I still think it will be a great game and worth a pre-order. And then he links Nexus, and you can see his name in the URL, affiliated for the kickback. So he knows full well that he has a comment about tempering hype right before an actual pre-order link. So this has me completely fucking confused. On the one hand, he's talking about hype being an issue, he knows it's a problem, and then a few lines down, he's encouraging pre-orders. And what is pre-ordering if not the complete abdication of all temperance and prudence, the full and entire capitulation and submission to hype? As soon as you hit pre-order, you forfeited all control you had over the publisher's handling of the game. They've got your money already and don't need to care anymore. As far as they're concerned, you're already fully on board and completely sold. Because guess what? You are. You've communicated with your wallet that they've already done enough. So what the hell does this mean? It's a complete contradiction. This is the kind of doublethink that I just can't overlook and can't let stand. And how can something be worth a pre-order? What does it mean to be worth a pre-order? How do you evaluate and assess for that? If you get absolutely nothing for doing it, then where the hell does the worth lie? What worth? And what did you use to determine that for us? The 5% of the game that they let you see, that has you convinced already. What about the other 95% of the game that you even acknowledge here remains deliberately concealed for you? And now you want us to take your word for it and pre-order while you get a kickback? This just doesn't add up. This fucking screams bullshit. And I should point out that this guy only has one pre-order link, while some people have two or more. And this guy is arguably one of the more critical YouTubers going into this stage of the Warhammer market and hype cycle.
By the time I got to the end of the fight, I wasn't worried so much if I was going to win or lose. It's that I was dreading having to fight back through it again for an additional uninterrupted 45 minutes.
There's probably way worse than this out there.
Genuinely.
Just imagine how bad the situation really is. Do not pre-order games ever. Be a responsible customer and retain the only power you have so you can exercise it in the only meaningful way you can, by buying games after they have released, which is the earliest point at which you can know if the publisher has handled the game properly. Buy it after release when the reviews indicate the publisher has handled the game in an upright and honest manner and the game is actually worth buying. If you don't do that, then you make legitimately good games economically non-viable, and you make half-assed cash grabs the most competitive and efficient way to get your money from you. If you pre-order the games of your favourite game franchise, you are directly responsible for its eventual decline and inevitable demise. Your money is paying for marketing and not for games. And this is the only possible interpretation the publisher can make. If you're a YouTuber and you encourage pre-ordering, then you're an epicenter, a ground zero, a melting down nuclear reactor for the spread of this poison. You're a remora on the underbelly of the shark, a precancerous mass, a terminal uncurable malignancy. If you're happy with that, then so be it. Just know that you reap what you sow. We can already see the damage that's been done when we look closely and see past the surface marketing and examine the actual game that's going on in the background. It's so easy to forget about the actual game. So let's remember it for a second.
Instead of getting a reworked Siege reveal, a reworked AI, a built-in army painter to emulate one of the defining features of tabletop, we get nothing. For years now, I've been speculating that the amount of resources CA has been putting into their games has not been increasing meaningfully, and now it shows. The presentation made by CA's studio director indicates this. Massive expansion in the number of employees with massive profits, with nobody able to make meaningful gameplay changes. Instead of increasing the amount of people working on the game, CA has instead increased the amount of projects being made. This means a shorter game release cycle, more frequent DLCs, but nothing's different. Everything's just shit shuffling.
And here are some observations to substantiate it. Units just spawning on the ground, the portals are irrelevant. The portal is just there as a placeholder. This is the best they had to show. And then healing actually spawning in models, so it's turned into a complete MOBA RPG. Guns still having no reloading animations, and dry firing. You see the muzzle report, the muzzle flash, but no bullet comes out. Further to that point, janky animations. The animations are supposed to be one of the strongest parts of a game like this. The setting is the excuse to use good animations, but the animations seem really janky and unfinished. To echo the words of Total Biscuit, who it's becoming apparent left a really big hole, never pre-order.
I think there's a trend of exploiting the legacy of a franchise to milk the absolute shit out of the loyal customers.
That's exactly what's going on.
I know, it's kind of absurd.
Yeah.
It's like people shell out money because they think they're safe, because the franchise is tried and tested.
They're not safe.
In actual fact, they can afford to just fuck you over.
Yeah.
And they do. If you're going to spend money buying an original game after it's came out and the reviews say it's good, don't just pay for the sequel of a franchise that was good once upon a time. I would wait.
I would wait as well and look at reviews.
Yeah.
User reviews, not critic reviews. Critic reviews, I think everyone knows they're a joke and they're full of shit.
Mm.
They're just a joke. I mean, like, go to Metacritic and look at the critic reviews for Rome 2, for Country of Heroes 2, all that stuff. Just look at it.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's like 7.9 or something on Metacritic for Rome 2. It's just a joke. And the user reviews are like 3.8, I think.
Which I trust much more.
Yeah, exactly. People who've actually played the game and weren't like, sitting paid for reviews. For good reviews.
For people that want to support me, I have a Patreon. That's the best way to do it. Special thanks to Matteo Olivetti, Nerdington, The Roadie451, Halcyon, and Robert Sparks.